French President Emmanuel Macron began his annual visit to troops stationed abroad today, landing in Ivory Coast. And we can show you images of him in Ivory Coast. This is at an army base outside of the capital, where he will be soon holding a Christmas dinner with troops there, as well as addressing them. And ahead of his speech, I want to welcome our guest for this evening, just to give a little bit of a preview of what we can expect. Niagale Bagayoko is a security expert and president of the African Security Sector Network think tank, which is based in Ghana, but you're based here in Paris. So while this is it's a tradition, every year he visits troops stationed in different countries. Last year it was Niger, the year before that it was Chad. This year in Ivory Coast, it comes at a bit of a difficult time for troops in the Sahel region, because there have been a couple of big attacks recently where there was loss of life. Is this a time when the troops really need some morale boosting?
Yes, absolutely. But I think that first it is important to make distinctions between the different kinds of French troops stationed presently in Africa. You have those which are permanently stationed, and they are presently in Senegal, Gabon, Djibouti, and in Ivory Coast. But you also have the so-called Operation Barkhane, which is meant to fight terrorism in 5 Sahel countries, in Mali, in Niger, in Burkina Faso, and in Chad and Mauritania. So it's different. And that's where the attack you're mentioning just occurred more than 2 weeks ago, with a crash of helicopter, but during a fighting operations. And also, there has been a lot of attacks against African militaries, in particular in Mali and in Niger, in Inates, where 71 soldiers were killed 1 week ago.
Right. So Ivory Coast, not one of the countries in that Sahel region necessarily, but the troops there are supporting the Barkhane operation.
Absolutely. It's important to know that French stationed troops in the 4 countries I mentioned, and in particular in Senegal and Côte d'Ivoire, are providing logistical support to the Barkhane operations. And it's key in the disposal. And it is also very important to understand that today there is a big fear to see the situation in Sahel to get down to the so-called pays côtiers, coastal countries. There are already some attacks which occurred, for instance, in Côte d'Ivoire, in Grand Bassam, a few years ago. And we know that also in Benin, there have been 2 French special forces killed when liberating 2 French hostages. So that's why it is a very a big symbol to have the president in one of those coastal countries.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is a traditional trip that the president makes every Christmas time. However, this time he's also there on a little bit of a political mission as well. He will be meeting with the presidents of both Ivory Coast and of Niger. There's been some experts who say that the security situation in the region has been deteriorating slowly. Do you agree with that? And why or why not do you think that's happening?
No, absolutely. It has been deteriorating, not slowly, but in fact, it is increasingly getting very tricky situation. Not only because you have an increase in the attacks targeting the armed forces, both French, international, such as MINUSMA, the UN mission, but also the local militaries, but also because you have other dimensions of conflict, not only terrorist dimension, but also criminality and also a kind of communal violence which is spreading out.
Do you think that this is a mission, the Barkhane mission, or the fight against extremism in the region overall? Is this a mission that can necessarily be won, or is it just a matter of continuously trying to contain it?
That's the key question, in fact. The situation today is as follows. You had initially a French intervention only in Mali, which was called the Serval operation, which had a very clear objective, which was to stop armed groups, including jihadist one, who wanted to go to Bamako. And this mission was successful, and it was very well welcomed by the local population. But now the situation had got much more complex with different local jihadist group and also other armed groups which have been spreading out. And that's why it is much more difficult to know what are the strategic targets of the French Barkhane operation.
Niagale Bagayoko will be speaking with you after the speech as well, but thank you for giving us a little bit more of a framework of Emmanuel Macron's visit. And as we wait for the French president to speak, I want to give you a little more context about the country that he's visiting as well. This visit is also about boosting economic ties in